Thousands of Roman soldiers disappeared on the edge of the known world. Not in a great battle remembered by history, not in a famous siege celebrated by poets. They vanished in forests so vast that survivors struggled to describe them. On a frontier so dangerous that even Rome, the greatest military power of its age, could not fully control it. Some never returned. Others returned carrying stories so terrifying that generations of Romans remembered them. And for centuries, the empire would never completely forget what happened beyond that frontier. This is the story of the Roman border, where entire armies could disappear without a trace. At the height of its power, Rome seemed unstoppable. Its legions had conquered vast territories stretching across Europe, North Africa, and the Middle East. Roman roads connected distant provinces. Fortresses guarded strategic crossings. Governors collected taxes from millions of people. To many Romans, it appeared that the empire's expansion had no limits. Beyond the Rhine River, however, lay a different world. The Romans called it Germania. It was not a kingdom. It was not a single nation. It was a vast landscape of forests, marshes, rivers, and scattered tribal territories. There were no great cities to capture, no central government to defeat, no throne whose destruction would end resistance. For Roman commanders, this made Germania frustratingly difficult to conquer. Victories could be won, battles could be fought, but control was another matter entirely. Still, Roman leaders believed they could succeed. The empire had overcome countless enemies before. Why should these tribes be any different? Over time, Roman armies pushed farther east of the Rhine. Forts were established, roads were planned, administrators prepared for the creation of new provinces. Many believed Germania was on the verge of becoming another permanent part of the empire. That confidence would prove disastrous. Among the people Rome trusted was a man named Arminius. As a young noble from a Germanic tribe, he had spent years within the Roman system. He spoke their language. He understood their military methods. He had served alongside Roman forces. Roman officials viewed him as a loyal ally. But beneath the surface, something else was happening. Arminius possessed a rare advantage. He understood both worlds. He knew how Romans thought. He knew how Roman officers made decisions. And he knew the weaknesses hidden beneath Rome's appearance of invincibility. While Roman authorities expanded their presence in Germania, Arminius quietly built connections among various tribes. Groups that often fought one another began to see a common threat. The Romans believed they were creating order. Instead, they were helping create resistance. The stage was being set for one of the greatest military disasters in Roman history. In the year 9 AD, a Roman governor named Publius Quinctilius Varus prepared to move his forces through Germania. Varus commanded 3 full legions. Alongside them marched auxiliary troops, servants, traders, families, wagons, animals, and supplies. The column stretched for miles. It was not moving as an army expecting battle. It was moving as a force that believed the region was largely under control. Then reports arrived. A local uprising had supposedly broken out. Arminius offered assistance. He advised Varus on the route. He assured the Romans that he would gather allied forces to support them. Varus trusted him. It was a decision that would change history. Picture yourself among the legionaries. You have marched for years under Rome's banners. You have survived battles and long campaigns. Now you enter dense forests beneath dark skies. The roads become muddy. The rain begins to fall. Movement slows. Visibility shrinks. The formation stretches farther and farther apart. And somewhere beyond the trees, unseen eyes are watching. Arminius had betrayed Rome. The reports of rebellion had been part of a carefully prepared trap. As the Romans advanced deeper into difficult terrain, Germanic warriors gathered around them. The attack did not begin with one dramatic clash. Instead, it started with confusion. Small assaults struck the column. Missiles emerged from the forest. Warriors appeared and vanished. The Romans struggled to form proper battle lines. Their greatest strength was discipline and organization. The terrain denied them both. The rain made conditions even worse. Roads became swamps. Equipment grew heavier. Communication broke down. What should have been a powerful army became a collection of isolated groups struggling to survive. The attacks continued, hour after hour, day after day. The Romans attempted to build defensive positions at night, but the pressure never fully disappeared. Every mile forward seemed to bring new danger. Every forest seemed to hide more enemies. The legions were being worn down, not by one decisive battle, but by relentless destruction. The further they moved, the more hopeless the situation became. Many soldiers no longer knew where safety lay. The route behind them was threatened. The route ahead was uncertain. Commanders struggled to maintain control. Fear spread through the ranks. For men trained to fight in organized formations, the chaos was terrifying. The enemy was often invisible. The forest itself seemed hostile. Then came the final collapse. Near what historians call the Teutoburg Forest, the remaining Roman forces faced overwhelming attacks. The exhausted legions could no longer hold together. Units shattered. Defensive lines broke. Thousands were killed. Others attempted to flee. Many disappeared into the wilderness. Varus, realizing the disaster was complete, took his own life rather than face capture. 3 Roman legions ceased to exist. Their standards were lost. Their soldiers were dead, scattered, or enslaved. An army that had entered Germania expecting authority had vanished into the forests. The news shocked Rome. Imagine standing in the capital when reports finally arrive. At first, the scale of the disaster seems impossible. 3 legions destroyed, an entire army gone. How could that happen? Rome had suffered defeats before, but this felt different. This was not merely a lost battle, it was a warning. The frontier beyond the Rhine was far more dangerous than many leaders had believed. According to ancient accounts, Emperor Augustus was devastated by the news. The loss haunted him. The disaster exposed a painful truth. Even the most powerful empire in the world had limits. Yet the story did not end there. Rome refused to accept the humiliation. Years later, new campaigns pushed into Germania. Roman armies searched for answers. They searched for revenge. And they searched for the missing. Under the command of Germanicus, Roman forces marched back into the lands where the legions had vanished. What they found was horrifying. Ancient sources describe battlefields still littered with bones. Weapons lay abandoned. Fragments of equipment remained scattered across the landscape. The remains of soldiers who had disappeared years earlier were finally discovered. Many had never received proper burials. Many had simply been left where they fell. For the Romans, it was a deeply emotional moment. The dead were not anonymous figures. They had been comrades, citizens, veterans, men who had marched beneath Rome's eagles. Germanicus ordered the remains gathered and buried. It was an act of respect, but it was also a reminder of the cost of overconfidence. Rome won victories during these later campaigns. Several lost standards were eventually recovered. Germanic tribes suffered defeats, Yet the dream of fully conquering the region began to fade. The Rhine increasingly became a practical boundary, a frontier, a line separating two worlds. For centuries afterward, Roman soldiers guarded that border. Watchtowers rose above rivers. Forts dotted the landscape. Patrols moved through dangerous territory. Yet beyond the frontier remained lands that Rome never completely controlled. The memory of the vanished legions lingered. Every soldier stationed along the Rhine knew the stories. They knew that somewhere beyond the forests, entire formations had once disappeared. They knew that discipline and courage alone could not guarantee survival. And they knew that the empire's enemies understood the terrain far better than any outsider ever could. The disaster in Germania became more than a military defeat. It became a lesson about power. Rome could build roads across continents. It could defeat kingdoms. It could crush rebellions. But it could not always impose its will on every frontier. Some borders resisted conquest. Some landscapes defeated armies. And some enemies understood patience better than the empire understood victory. The forests of Germania became one of those places, a frontier where Roman soldiers marched into uncertainty, a frontier where confidence turned into catastrophe, and a frontier where thousands vanished so completely that their fate haunted Rome for generations. Long after the weapons rusted and the battlefields disappeared beneath the trees, the warning remained. Even the greatest empire in history could lose itself beyond the edge of the map.